Smoke still hung low over the Valley of Appomattox, even days after General Lee had handed over his sword. The sounds of worn-out boots, shattered wagons, and exhausted horses, dragging the weight of a war long past, still echoed. For many, the end had come, but for Elias Turner, the war had only just begun. Elias was a Southern man by birth, but never a man of flags. When the war broke out in 1861, he resisted as long as he could. A farmer from Arkansas, he owned a small patch of land inherited from his father, where he raised corn and pigs alongside his wife Margaret and their 2 small children. His hands were calloused, his eyes always scanning the skies, and his heart tied to the soil. But no one escaped the Civil War. When the Confederate Army passed through his region, they took his crops, his livestock, and finally his freedom. Elias was forced into enlistment. Margaret cried on the porch as he left, and the children, too young to understand, simply waved. Believing he'd be back in a few days, he didn't return for 4 years. The war carved him into stone. He watched friends die. He stared into the guts of carnage. He fought at Shiloh, Vicksburg, and the siege of Petersburg. But what truly changed him happened at the end. When the surrender was signed, Elias dared to dream. Dream of home, green fields, and Margaret's brown eyes waiting for him on the porch. But when he returned, he found hell. The small cabin where he had lived was burned to its foundation. The pigs lay dead, fields scorched, and nailed to a tree trunk, a crude wooden cross bearing 3 names carved by knife: Margaret Turner, Samuel Turner, Lydia Turner. Beneath it, written in dried blood, paid the price for treason. Order of K. Doyle. Elias knelt there for hours, too broken to scream, too faithless to pray. Only the wind answered, whispering through the ruins. He didn't know who K. Doyle was, but he knew what it meant. The Ghost Regiment, a band of Confederate deserters who continued pillaging and killing after the surrender, preaching that the war never ends for men like them. Elias knew. In that moment, he wasn't a farmer anymore. He was a corpse that hadn't stopped walking, and what drove him now was vengeance. Over the next days, he scoured the surroundings in silence, gathering information like a predator learning to hunt again. He found an old rifle hidden under a neighbor's floorboards, a hunting knife, cartridges, a thick duster coat, and his father-in-law's wide-brimmed hat, a former Texas Rangers. He spoke to no one. Tears slept none. On the 3rd night, he found the first trail. A drifter named Silas, a man Elias had once saved from lynching, told him K. Doyle was known as the Preacher of Slaughter, a former Confederate captain turned mad prophet. After the surrender, Doyle led a gang of rogue soldiers who refused peace, some 20 men roaming between Missouri, Arkansas, and Indian Territory. They branded their victims with fire. Elias didn't flinch. He tightened his grip on the rifle, hand mounted up. Blood began to spill again on Southern soil. Elias hunted them down. One by one, he started with Seth McCullough, the gang's scout. Found him drunk in a Little Rock saloon, bragging about torching traders' homes. Elias waited outside. When Seth stumbled out, laughing, Elias pressed the rifle barrel into his spine and whispered, "This is for Samuel." Seth punched through Seth's lungs. He dropped to his knees, coughing blood. A second shot ended it. The next day, Elias nailed a message to a nearby tree. "K. Doyle, I'm coming." Elias Turner, the tale spread like wildfire. Lone man in black, hunting the ghosts of war. Some called him cursed, others a righteous judge. But all knew one thing: he wouldn't stop. Elias moved north, through ghost towns, forgotten trails, speaking to hunters, blacksmiths, whores. He gathered pieces. The gang had scattered to evade pursuit, but one name rose again and again: Malcolm Vane, Doyle's right-hand man, known for ripping teeth from live victims and burying children upside down. Elias knew what had to be done, but with each step closer to the beast's heart, his own heart darkened. One gray morning in Ash Grove, Elias found a smoldering barn. Too late. 3 corpses hanging from the rafters. A black family that had sheltered freedmen. The Confederate gold brand burned into the door. Elias dismounted, entered the barn, removed his hat, and knelt. For the first time, he prayed, "Lord, if you're still out there, tell me, why did you let the devil win? Why Margaret? Why my children?" Silence answered, but it wasn't empty. It was calling. Asterisk on the road back. Elias met a boy, 12 years old, filthy and bruised. The child said a man with a scarred eye and gold teeth passed through days ago, boasting about a holy fire cleansing the land. Elias gave the boy his last dollar and followed the trail. His eyes didn't blink anymore. His face was carved from stone. The next stop, Fort 3 Crows, near Indian Territory, and there, hell would begin. When Elias reached the foothills near Indian Territory, sky threatened to collapse. An old, crumpled map in his hand marked the path to Fort 3 Crows, a military outpost, abandoned since 1862. Once used briefly during skirmishes with Cherokee and Chickasaw tribes, but now it served as refuge for war's lingering ghosts, and demons still alive. Malcolm Vane had to be there. Every trail, every whisper led to the same place. Elias tied his horse to a crooked pine and went on foot, rifle on his back, revolver on his hip, knife at his side. He moved in silence. It's a kind of silence that comes when death is already watching. After more than an hour through thick brush, he saw it, the silhouette of the old fort through the trees rotted, wooden towers, half-collapsed walls, and a tattered flag bearing the emblem of 3 crows, painted in coal. They were inside. Elias didn't rush. He spent 2 days observing. There were 5 men, one tall, broad scar on the left eye, gold teeth. Malcolm, the same face that haunted his dreams since he'd seen the cross that bore Lydia's name. The others, drunks and killers. One wore a slave's collar on his belt. Another wore a necklace made of human fingers. They passed time playing cards and bragging about cleansing traitors. Elias took notes, details, habits, who pissed where, who passed out first, who fought with whom. On the 3rd night, he struck. He began with Wiggins the Mutt, who took night watch on the western wall. Elias found him behind the latrine. A wire around the neck. A short struggle. Then silence. Next came Parley, the so-called dentist who plucked teeth from corpses to sell as charms. Elias crept into his cabin while he slept and stabbed him in the chest, then the throat, tied him, then the eyes. He left a message carved into the wall above the bed for Lydia. The others woke to screams. Too late. Elias stood outside, rifle ready, dropping the first one, Howard, with a shot to the chest. He fell, screaming. Elias silenced him with another shot. Then one to the heart. Skeeter, a wiry rat, tried to run, but Elias chased him, and when he caught him, it wasn't with bullets, it was with the knife. 15 times. When he was done, Elias stood, soaked in blood. Sweat mingling with rain, chest heaving like a wounded animal, but his eyes, cold as granite. Malcolm Vane, the demon with gold teeth, was hiding in the North Tower's basement. He tried to load a shotgun with trembling hands. You're Turner? Elias Turner, he stammered. And you're the one who laughed while my daughter screamed in a burning house. Elias replied, leveling the revolver. Malcolm dropped the gun, fell to his knees. It wasn't me who ordered that. Akia gave the word. He said you helped Yankees. I just followed orders. I swear. Elias stepped closer. You pulled her teeth while she still screamed. Malcolm began to cry. I beg you, in God's name, forgive me. Leah smiled for the first time in months. God ain't here. The gunshot echoed through the hills. Then, silence. Elias piled the bodies in the center of the fort, doused them in lamp. Oil lit the fire. Watched the flames devour what was left of their evil. Before riding out, carved a message into the wall. Doyle, one has fallen. Many more to go. I am your Appomattox. Elias Turner. As he left, the rain stopped. The sky cracked open, painted red like fresh blood. But Elias didn't look to the horizon. He looked south, toward Delacroix, where a former Confederate overseer named Henry Blaine ran a brothel and dealt in flesh. His partner, Virgil Kane, the arsonist, That's where the next soul would be taken, and that's where Elias would begin to die inside. Delacroix didn't show up on maps. It was a swamp town buried deep in southern Louisiana, surrounded by alligators, moss, and more sand than any one place should ever hold. Officially, the town didn't exist. But everyone knew, if you wanted drugs, children, women, or death, Qua was the last stop before hell, and that's where Elias Turner was headed, still soaked in blood, or with vengeance burning hotter than the fever in his open wounds. Virgil Kane was a name passed around, like a curse. A former artillery officer. He'd deserted the Confederacy before the surrender and led raids on towns that were too loyal to the Union. He became infamous for burning homes with entire families inside, laughing as the flames swallowed their screams. Rumor said he bathed in lamp oil before lighting fires, just to test if the devil wanted him yet. Elias had a handwritten letter taken from Malcolm Vane's coat. It read, "Kane is in Delacroix. Works with blank. The preacher's turn will come." The preacher was K. Doyle. But before Elias could face the head of the snake, he had to break its spine. And Virgil Kane was the backbone. When Elias reached the edge of Delacroix, 2 armed guards blocked the path. Rusted rifles, rotten teeth, smelled like whiskey and filth. One raised his gun. "Who comes down this muddy road? We got rules here." Elias stepped off his horse, pulled a coin from his pocket, tossed it in the mud. "Name's Elias. I came to by fire." They laughed. "One spit in the dirt. If you're looking for Virgil, it'll cost more than coin. It'll cost your soul," Elias answered, by shooting one in the knee. The second pissed himself and ran. Delacroix stank of rot, cheap liquor, and broken girls, makeshift brothels, opium shacks, children with dead eyes. And in the center of the filth stood Henry Blaine's pride, the final judgment, a 2-story hell house. Red candles in the windows, women on display behind torn curtains, guards with rifles on the steps, and upstairs, Virgil Kane, the fire starter, the man who laughed while Elias's family burned. Elias didn't wait inside. The piano stopped when he entered. A prostitute dropped her tray. One guard cracked his knuckles. "This ain't your place, old man." Elias said nothing. He walked up the stairs, 1, 2, 3 steps at a time. Then he heard the voice, booming, drunk, evil. "Send me another, Blaine. Last one passed out too quick. Ha ha ha." Kane, Elias, kicked the door open. Virgil stood there, naked, sweating, drunk, a candle in one hand, an unconscious girl at his feet. He froze for a second. Then he laughed. "Well, look at this. The ghost of Appomattox. I knew you'd come. You all come back eventually." Elias pulled his revolver, but Virgil moved faster than he looked, rolled to the side, pulled a pistol from beneath the pillow, fired. The shot grazed Elias's shoulder. Hot pain, but not fatal. They fought, fists, elbows, broken glass. Elias took a headbutt. Virgil tried to strangle him with a bedsheet, but Elias grabbed the candle and shoved it into Kane's left eye. The scream shook the whole building. Kane fled. Down the stairs, Elias followed, bleeding, stumbling, fueled by fury in the square. Kane crawled like a snake. "Help me," he cried to Blaine, who stood on the porch holding a shotgun. "Help me, for God's sake." Blaine grinned. "You're done, friend. The devil's waiting." Elias walked up and stabbed Kane in the neck. Once, twice, 3, 4 times. Kane gargled blood, eyes wide, mouth twitching. Elias knelt beside him. "You felt what my daughter felt, dying in fire." He spit on Kane's face. The town didn't interfere. The ones who lived off sin knew hell when they saw it. Elias turned to Blaine, still standing in the doorway. "You're next." But Blaine was no fool. He was already on horseback, riding toward the marsh. Elias chased him through swamps, rain, thorns, pain. He bled from his arm, from his side, but he never stopped. Blaine's horse slipped in a bog. He tried to raise a pistol. It jammed. Elias leveled his revolver. "I never burned anyone. I just sold." "Who sold 12-year-old girls to men like Kane? That makes you worse." He shot Blaine in the gut. dragged his body to a hollow log, doused him in lamp oil, lit a match. Final judgment, delivered. The next morning, Elias rested in a shack owned by a toothless fisherman. The old man gave him water, bandaged his wounds. "You're chasing the devil, boy." "No," Elias replied. "I am the devil now?" The fisherman told him Doyle had passed through days before, headed north, preaching a new W.A.R.K. Doyle, the last name, the preacher of slaughter. Elias mounted up. The road was long, the pain deep, but his vengeance deeper still. The name K. Doyle weighed heavier than a coffin on Elias Turner's back. For weeks, he followed the trail northward through frozen rivers, empty plains, colony, and ghost towns where hope had died long before the war ever ended. The world felt tired. Soldiers had gone home, those who still had one. The rest, shadows, broken men, horrors, men like Doyle K. Doyle wasn't just a deserter. He was a fanatic, called himself the pastor of the eternal South, preached that the war still burned in the hearts of true believers, and surrender was a lie crafted by cowards. His followers saw him as a prophet, murdering, raping, looting in his name. Elias didn't follow a God, only a name, only a promise, only death in the burned-out ruins of Red Hollow. Elias found Doyle's gospel written in blood, a church blackened by flame, bodies hung from the pulpit, a child nailed to a cross. Above the door, seared into the charred wood, "Peace is blasphemy, only blood redeems." K. Doyle Elias collapsed to his knees. He wept for the first time since burying his wife with bare hands, and swore that every broken breath that Doyle would feel his family's pain before death took him. Word spread that Doyle's cult had taken refuge in a fortified monastery deep in the Flint Hills of Kansas, a stone structure from long ago, now held by 40 armed zealots, traps, rifles, guard dogs, all ready to die for the pastor of the South. And Elias went alone, not because he thought he would win, but because there was nothing left of him to lose. He arrived at dusk, snuck through the back, strangled the first, squalled the throat, slit the throat of the second with a knife, stole their rifle, and began walking through hell. The first 5 never saw him coming, but then shooting began, bullets whistling through stone corridors, dogs barking, men shouting. Elias moved like a ghost, bleeding from his shoulder, ribs, leg, but killing, always killing. 14 bodies in 15 minutes. A shot to the chest knocked him against a pillar. He coughed blood, then looked up and saw him, K. Doyle, standing at the altar, wearing a blood-stained cassock, a black Bible in one hand, a pistol in the other. He looked down at Elias. "You are the final horseman, Elias Turner. Death on a tired horse. Have you come to punish me?" Elias raised his revolver. Click. Empty. Doyle grinned. "You sinned as much as I have. You burned, you tortured, you killed. You're just a reflection of what you claim to hate." Elias coughed, eyes blazing. "Difference is, I did it all for love." Doyle raised his gun, but Elias wasn't done. From his boot, he pulled a knife and threw. The blade sank into Doyle's throat. He staggered, dropped the Bible, dropped the pistol, fell to his knees, choking on blood, died like a dog. The compound caught fire. The followers fled. The dogs howled, and Elias lay on the cold stone floor. He looked at the ceiling, at the wooden beams, at the shattered, stained glass, where twilight spilled like spilled wine. He smiled, for the first time in years, reached into his coat, pulled out a crumpled photo. Margaret, Samuel, Lydia. He held it to his chest. "I waited so long. Now I'm coming." His eyes closed, and for the first time since Appomattox, Elias Turner found peace. The next day, a riderless horse arrived in a nearby town. Blood dried on the saddle. No sign of its owner. Tied to the reins, a note. The war is over, but justice, never sleeps. Elias Turner. No one ever found his body. But across the South, wherever fire and sin had taken root, new crosses began to appear, with one less name.